On Sunday, we celebrated the first day of Advent in the new calendar year in the Catholic faith. The message for the congregation at the Mass for us was about vices. And, well, I reflected briefly on my own vices, thinking I've kicked all the pretty major ones, but I had to acknowledge that I still suffered from, an addiction to food. And coming up on the Christmas season, I'm reminded even more so that it's a battle I've had my whole life. I'll be honest, I'm definitely overweight. I could definitely use some restraint and a commitment to exercise, but perhaps we can talk about that at another time. For now, I was simply reminded of the last episode where I talked a bit about addiction. I wanted to caveat some of the topics from last episode. I think there's actually a third reason to use substances or drugs, I suppose, if you want to call it that. Psychedelics, for instance, is something that is quite commonly now used for seeking knowledge, I suppose, wisdom, and healing for people who have suffered traumas, and used in conjunction with therapy. And I have to say that I want to update what I said as there being only two reasons with this addendum. I personally have had my own positive experience, and honestly, it was something that set me on this current path that rewrote my thinking and opened my mind to new ideas and really got me out of the rut that I was stuck in. So I do want to make that addition. I will still, though, say that though some people say, and that was why I tried psychedelics, was because I was told they were not addictive. They are not physically addictive, but I think with anything, like I said just a moment ago, food can be an addiction. I think you need to be wary of maybe a spiritual or mystical addiction. Life is very much illuminated in those experiences, and it can make the everyday feel a little bit harder and make you feel a little bit more unworthy. So that's my update. And just a bit of a cautionary tale, I suppose, a little bit. But that's not what today's topic is about. Today, I am going to reflect on something a little bit more positive based on an experience I had yesterday also. I went on a 16-kilometer or 10-mile, for American listeners, bike ride around the city here. And I have not done that since moving here. It was something that I did a lot in Stockholm, lots of walking, lots of bike riding, and it was a beautiful sunny day here, and something came over me. I just thought it would be a nice opportunity, and I'd really wanted to see what the biking trails were like now that we've been away for 10 years, and I invited along my daughter. It was an amazing experience. We rode for hours, and it was amazing just to spend some time with her and really reflect on the life that we've had together. It was really nice to just put the world away for a little while. I was reminded that it wasn't so long ago that I really failed in this area to really meet her and get to know her. I was again reminded that we must interact with our children in action, not in promises. A promise is always some time in the future, and I think if we're honest, it often never arrives. And those are the things that they'll remember, that our actions didn't match our words. And I think after a life lived, we would much rather have them remember the people that we were and the time that we spent, and not in the promises we failed to fulfill. Welcome to the Sons of Men podcast, a conversation dedicated to meaning in the lives of men, offering a window into the trials of masculinity where we talk about family, spirituality, creativity, and legacy to better understand each other and to offer solutions for the next generation in an increasingly shallow and hostile world. I'm your host, Curtis Swede, a father and husband, addict in lifelong recovery, and an advocate for men struggling in the shadow of suffering. This is episode 9, A Father in Time. Before we left Sweden, I was given a contact number for a friend of a friend who had moved to Vancouver from Stockholm. And in the busyness of moving here, I'd failed to reach out to this contact. I had said hello before we moved, and suddenly I realized 5 months had passed. So I reached out to a total stranger, something that I'm trying to do more often when I have an opportunity or someone says, you should meet this person. I always say yes now. We met up and it was really great. He's a bit younger than me and he's been living here in Vancouver for a decade now, and we just got right into it. It was interesting connecting with somebody. Maybe it was because he was Swedish, and there's a part of me that really misses my life there. But we started talking about life almost immediately. And I think also he was in an interesting place that really resonated with me and why this show even exists, to be honest. He was talking a lot about burnout, giving his time to work and chasing this imperial objective that was written on his heart, but he'd really not stopped to consider what it was about. He was missing time with his family, his son, his wife, and all of a sudden he found himself questioning why. He was realizing that dogged and tired pursuit suddenly started to feel hollow when he saw his child growing up in front of him. I'm reminded of what my accountant told me one time when I was complaining about the various jobs that I'd had as a consultant, and I was complaining about how much time I was giving them, and he corrected me. Not time, but life. And that really stuck with me. You are all aware of my own experience with that crisis, and I was reflecting on that this morning when I was reflecting on the enjoyable day that I had riding my bike with my daughter, and how grateful I am that I was able to course correct before I was too late. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm going to presuppose all of this with an admission of frailty and weakness and failure, as is my way. But I do want to keep it a little bit lighter today, and I want to talk about being a dad. You can apply this generally as well to relationships, but today we're going to focus on fatherhood. So I'm reflecting on the changes that I made, and like I said, I still battle this stuff today, but I am really motivated to be a father that's invested and a father that serves his daughter. So there's 3 basic things that I think really changed for me when I reevaluated my priorities. And they're really simple: adventure, attention, and time. So adventure. Does your lifestyle allow you to be spontaneous? I remember how often and frequent I would say, not right now, I have to finish this, or I have a call that I have to do, can we do it after? And then, it wouldn't happen. But really, I was blocked from spontaneity of being able to just say yes more often. Biking 16 kilometers, not necessarily my idea of fun, at least not a first idea of fun. But when I was out there and, I tried something new that was outside my normal routine, it did become fun. I probably said more than was appreciated. What a beautiful day this is. Aren't we having a fun time? I think by about kilometer 10, the agreements stopped. And this is something else I'm bad at when we're talking about adventure or spontaneity. But doing things that your child likes, even if it's something that is just not up your alley. For instance, my daughter often wants to go to a park, and I can't. It's not something that I immediately get jazzed about, but I think you can find joy in just being there with them and seeing the happiness and the fun that they're having. Attention. Does your lifestyle allow you to be present? Last year, we were visiting Vancouver, and when we still lived in Stockholm, we made a pact as a family that we would quit screens for 30 days. We were really worried about our daughter's screen time because she was addicted, you see. And we all quit. And after 2 or 3 days, our daughter was very fine, thank you, and was reminding us frequently that she didn't have the problem. And she was right. We were definitely addicted. We couldn't put the phone down. And after a couple days, I realized how much that thing calls for your attention. It buzzes, it lights up, it makes noises. But after that 3 days, we had to find ways to entertain ourselves. And it was obvious that it become this incredibly embedded pattern that we'd slump down at the end of a night, go on our screens or watch a TV show and just zone out. And we weren't really engaging with each other. So after the first couple days of jonesing hard for entertainment that I didn't have to do any work for, I could just sit down and turn my brain off, we started to read together. We started to tell stories together. We're a family that likes board games and role-playing games. That's something that we put extra time into because we had little else to fill our evenings. And through that, I really learned her sense of humor. She was very creative and inventive in storytelling, and also had an incredible gift for comedic timing, which she continues to foster to this day, which brings me endless delight because we can now riff together on terrible shows that we watch. But it brought us all together, physically in space and emotionally in sharing time without distraction. I think it's important to remember that they see us staring at our phones all day long. By doing so, we're teaching them what is important to us and important to society. We can castigate children all we want about being addicted to screens, but they're only mimicking what they see in the parents who love them. Now, that 30-day fast didn't last past the 30 days, but I often tell people, and I still genuinely feel it, it was a really magical time, and I really want to try to get back to that. I think it's pretty much impossible to do it full time, but to remove it as a default when it comes to ways of spending time, I highly encourage it, and I'm really going to try to reintegrate it myself. And finally, time. There's so little of it. And I dropped my daughter off from school the other day. This is about a month ago. I dropped her off and drove home. And as I was driving, I was thinking she's 10. And I had it rattling around in my head. And I walked up the stairs, got into the kitchen, and it just hit me. She's already lived with us for over half the time that she likely will. Probably 8 more years together in this home. And it is such a cliche, but it is true. We have so little time with our children in our homes, and they do grow up so fast. And yet we fill our lives with junk, emotional or physical, And later on in life, when we've grown old and time is winding down for us, what will they say if we got it right? If we gave them precious and invaluable time? Dad, I wish we had more of it. So put away the outside world when you can. Spend time with your children, or those you love, of course. But for dads out there, I'm talking to you. Be present with them. Give them your full attention and time. Ask them questions. There's been some amazing moments over the years when I just was quiet and let her talk. We were in Barcelona visiting some friends when we were still living in Europe at the time. It was an early morning, and she came up to me, and she had been wanting to go to the beach since we got there, but it just hadn't worked out. And it was early, everyone was still sleeping, and she came up to me, Dad, let's go to the beach. And I just went. I'm not a beach guy. If you see this body, you would know why. We'll get back to the snacks another time. But I'm just not a beach guy. But I thought, you know what? It's a beautiful morning. Let's go. So we packed up and we went. And we just stood in the water. And she asked me some amazing questions. And at the time, she was probably 8. What is God? Where do we go when we die? What's it like there? What do you believe? And we talked like that for an hour. Kids can really surprise you with their curiosity and their intelligence and their insight, and sometimes even make you challenge your own assumptions and perspectives. I love that about my daughter. She helps me see things in a new way. Just let them be the focus and learn to know them better. I think sometimes we dismiss the way they think as simplicity, but I think you'll be genuinely surprised by that little brain that is engaging with you if you just put the world away for a while. I usually begin the episode with a quote, but I'm going to end it this time with one. Children are educated by what the grown-up is and not by his talk. It's a quote from Carl Jung. Say what you will about the guy. I was into him for a period. I encourage you to connect with a child, your children, this week. Take a special day, a couple hours on a Saturday morning, or plan something where it's just you and your kid or your kids. And try these 3 things out. See how it fits for your family and your lifestyle. Can you be adventurous? Can you be spontaneous? Can you give them your full attention without your phone buzzing and taking your mind away even for a moment? And are you giving them the time that one day when you look back, you will go, I'm so glad I did that, and not regret it in your later years? Thank you for listening to the Sons of Men podcast. This is a short one. I was just feeling really inspired by, well, the beauty of Vancouver, first of all, which has really popped off this year. When I lived here 10 years ago, I didn't go outside. I was a literal mushroom. Well, I wasn't a literal mushroom. That's what my wife called me, a man mushroom. I would sit in the dark and watch movies. Sweden taught me to love nature, and now that I'm here, wow. I really took that for granted, so I'm not going to do that anymore. And how enjoyable it was just to spend a couple of hours quietly biking and seeing new sights with my kiddo. I think we can be inspired in many, many surprising ways if we quiet our minds and quiet our hearts and learn to live in the moment and give proper time and attention to the things that really matter. So, that's the challenge this week. Take the time. Put your damn phone away. I know we hear this all the time, but genuinely do it. Try 2 days. See if you can do it for 2 days. And when you do, let me know how it goes. I'd love to hear what your experiences are when you're not distracted and pulled away constantly from the things that matter. And until then, God bless.